the News Channel 5 network, this is Morning Line with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Morning Line. We've a good show on tap for you on this Wednesday. It is freezing out there. Don't go outside. Just stay here and stay on the program with us, and feel free to join in the conversation if you'd like. We'll get the number up there in a moment because we're having our monthly visits from the Davidson County Sheriff, Daron Hall. Good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Nick.
It's nice to see you. It's been a while, and well, not a while, but I mean, a lot has happened since we last talked.
Yeah.
And we're embarking upon the holiday season and the last-minute toy store. It's interesting. We were talking yesterday with the folks from Salvation Army who do a great job, and you actually came up at one point talking about so much that's going on right now.
Right.
And they're just gearing up. They have some special events. The bell ringers are going to be going out this year. If you watched the show yesterday, you know about that. And now, is this the second year for you? I mean, because last year was the big year where you decided to get involved. And this is one reason. You've said there's not going to be sober ride this year.
Right.
Because, hey, there's Uber, and the demand's not there as much, and so you're putting your resources toward the toy store.
Yeah, you know, Nick, for 35 years we did the sober ride thing. 35 years. Okay. And you know, and I've been there 30 of those 35 years in some capacity, and really it started years ago. I was born and raised here, and it started where you would be out at an establishment on New Year's Eve, and if you needed a ride home, you'd pick the phone up and call. Way before we had cell phones, you'd pick the phone up in the establishment, and we would send a vehicle out, pick you up, and take you to your home in Donaldson or Bellevue or Antioch or wherever you live. And that's how it started. And over the next 35 years, or 30 years or so, what happened was we no longer were able to even get to you because the city of Nashville has a concentrated event of 150, 200,000 people running around downtown. We could never find Nick Barris in the middle of 200,000 people. So what it turned into was we would pull up with this Sober Ride logo on our vehicles, and people would just get in the vehicle.
Because they could see it. And then you'd go, it was a van?
It was vans and cars and buses at one point. But one of the problems, and I hate to say this, one of the things that we learned was we really were helping more people that were in from out of town get back to their hotels and get back to these other Airbnbs and so forth. And I just thought, even 2 or 3 or 4 years ago, the quality of the program we were running really had gone away. The quantity had shrunk. Yeah, it really, Nashville moved in a very large, centralized event, and it's just too hard to manage what we were doing. Plus, rideshare takes a big part of that.
Yeah, I mean, DUIs, I've talked to some attorney friends of mine. In fact, some of the attorneys who are making a living off DUIs are saying it's just off the cliff because now you've got Uber and all these and Lyft, and DUIs are down. The other thing that's down, by the way, is some drug cases, drug charges, marijuana and such, because of the legalization of it. Not that they don't bring it here and it's still illegal here, but folks who are getting it elsewhere and going there. Or they're buying it there and bringing it back here and not getting caught, whatever, you know. But so many states have it legal. So lawyers, a lot of them who made their currency in DUIs and petty drug crimes, it's disappeared. It's more competitive for the gigs out there for lawyers than ever before.
Yeah, and this is just my anecdotal theory about it. But the other thing is, you know, people who dabble in use of drugs, or especially using and driving around, today they can get an Uber too. Now, they don't have to tell the driver what they're doing, but the point is that person, so if the driver follows the traffic laws, the Uber driver, they're not going to get pulled over, whereas a person who's using drugs or stealing or selling is not as likely to be following all that. In the old days, they were trying to drive across town to buy, swap, sell. Today, they very likely could be in with a ride share, not and you would no one would know. Exactly. Oh, I agree with you. That's exactly. It's changed. But to me, you know, fine. If they're not getting caught as much, I think that's bad. But that's a fair trade-off to have safer roads and not have to. We've done so many stories of late of where motorists just cross over the interstate and slam into some innocent poor individual, killing them because they're drunk as a skunk and the wrong side of the road. I saw.
And you know, and the sad fact is, it's always the idiot behind the wheel that survives. Someone's got to die. It should be that person. Hope no one dies. But if someone's got to die, not the poor innocent person driving, minding his own business. The other one that got me, again, you know, as a sheriff, I mean, you see these things and you wouldn't be out there investigating it. But did you see that story about the poor fellow on his way to Nissan with the rock dropped off maybe the Shelby Street Bridge?
That was terrible. That was terrible. That was just totally innocent, and who knows what. I mean, that was not just some. I mean, you're talking about a very large. And by the way, we were talking about this over the holiday, but I mean, not that it, I mean, you had to be pretty darn good. If you look at where it left and it hit dead center where the driver was, you'd have to assume that's a little bit of luck or misfortune.
That's what I think. Because I think if I went out there to try to hit a moving target from a bridge, I maybe would hit it 2 or 3 times out of 10 if I'm lucky.
That's right.
To that direct to kill someone.
Right, terrible.
The other thing I wanted, and we'll talk more about the toy store in just a moment near the end of the show to let people know how to get involved. But we had a court hearing yesterday. Just as a sheriff, I want your take on this. The horrible case of Joe Clyde Daniels. And yesterday there was a hearing. Among other things, they asked for a change of venue. As you probably know if you watched it, the judge granted a change of venue in the sense that the trial's going to happen in Davidson County, but they're going to bring a jury in. That happened here in the Perry March case, things like that. The other thing is they had moved the father who's charged with killing the boy to Riverbend Maximum Security Prison. And he's lost like 80 pounds. And his attorney went before the judge and said, look, we'd like to have him moved back to the Davidson County jail because it's just mentally and physically, it's just not working for him. Look at him. And the sheriff testified, a man I have a lot of respect for in Davidson County who's been through a lot. But he got up to testify and said, listen, it's a security issue. Where he's at in our jail, we're already housing his wife, or the mother of the child. You know, there's inmates here, and we're a smaller jail. We can't, security-wise, keep him and feel safe with it. Riverbend can handle it. And, you know, I'm sorry he's not doing well there. I don't know what the problem is, but we should. And the sheriff, I think, convinced the judge. He said, look, the sheriff's in charge of this and doing it right. I'm going to trust him. He's staying put. I'm just curious. The sheriff's saying that. What kind of concerns? And I know you have a much larger jail here, but he's basically saying that this inmate creates a security issue for him in his county jail.
Yeah, by the way, I think Sheriff Bledsoe does a great job.
Yeah, he's had a horrible, you know, the other big hearing was the emotions in the case of his deputy, Baker, who was shot and killed this past year. Just horrible stuff.
I don't know if you remember, but we took, is it Wiggins?
Yeah, Wiggins. Yeah, you took him in for him. There's another security issue. Wiggins couldn't stay in. Can you imagine them keeping him in the jail where he kills one of their officers? Come on.
Yeah, I have a much more comfort with that, comfort as in, I wouldn't want us to keep someone, and I don't think they should keep someone who is charged with killing someone who works there.
Absolutely.
You know, and so that, on the other hand, I'm not super familiar with Dixon's jail system other than we have a really good relationship with them, and I trust that they have some concerns that are probably related to size and shape of their building, maybe overcrowded, may not can separate the way you'd want. The public don't understand sometimes what you're trying to do is to protect him from other inmates, and that just sounds silly. It's not that he is necessarily going to threaten to harm someone else, but people don't like what he's charged with. They may fear him. There's a lot to go into securing him. It's not just to make sure he doesn't get out. Yeah. It's oftentimes to make sure people don't get to him.
Oh no, that's it. I don't think he was afraid that he could escape. I mean, he was, I think, saying security issues within the jail likely involving other inmates. I think he didn't go into specifics, but I suspect that's part of it.
Yeah, and so I kind of trust. I walked through and heard that story, but I'm. You know, and I think it's typically more when the person is involved with a crime against one of your own. I think in a situation like this, a very high-profile case, and I heard the testimony of the Daniels person saying he couldn't, thinking of suicide, the meals, he's losing
not getting
weight,
supervision the way he should. I mean, trust me, when you post those on none of the viewers have any sympathy for the guy, you know. But let's remind folks, all right, there was a confession in this case, and in any case where you have a high-profile inmate coming to you and there's a lot of anger targeted at them, right now you have some very high-profile inmates in your jail. People rush to judgment. They very likely may be guilty, but they're innocent till proven guilty, and so it's your responsibility. You have to protect them.
Yeah, and that's very hard to do as a constituent. I mean, you know, the Waffle House situation. I grew up in that area. Is very. I mean, it has a lot of a son that's that age and a lot going on, and just can easily eat at Waffle House often. And I have a real. Personally, I have a real frustration with that situation, and so when you remove that and then you come to work, my job is to make sure he's safe. Now that's a bizarre way to think, because safe from what? Safe from the other inmates, safe from our staff,
safe from himself even if he's suicidal. Which
is, you know, and that's the situation here. The thing I really appreciated out of the hearing yesterday was that the judge said the right thing. The decision to house a person is the sheriff of the county. It shouldn't be the judge. It shouldn't be, and I respect the fact that what he was doing was leaning on the expertise of the sheriff in the county and saying, we trust what that problem really is. You know, the Department of Corrections is responsible to house him now, and I trust that they're going to do that well. And so I think the judge is saying that needs to be in the hands of the sheriff. Yeah, a lot of times judges in this county and others sometimes overstep, I think, that responsibility. I do not think it's their job to decide where someone should be housed. You know, because that's the duty of the county elected sheriff to make sure that they're safe and secure. And we all don't know what's going on in Dixon at the time. Like you said, within 2 or 3 months, they had a terrible run of bad luck, and the resources that were expended to do that. So we, in the wee hours of the morning, took the Wiggins person. He stayed with us, gosh, I forgot, 3, 4, 5 months, and then we eventually moved him to the state for them, and just to try to get the, you know, kind of calm down everybody. And we have a very large system compared to a county like Dixon, and we can separate people easier. And you know, and it's the right thing to do. I will never forget when we lost an officer in '95. One of the first things that after the settling of that and the arrest occurs, then you realize, think about this for a second. No matter what you do, that person who is charged with killing one of your officers, if their meal is just a little cool, they are going to argue that you're doing it because of retaliation to their staff. I mean, you can't win, and that's just the non-physical part of it. But you would hate to see a use of force in an incident, and then the person is going to claim all sorts of things.
Yeah, you don't need that. So the best thing is to get them out of that system. Yeah,
and the emotions inside. I mean, look, I mean, we're humans too, and a lot of folks were very close to, and would be very close to the officers that are lost. So you just want to remove it. That's just the best thing to do. And we had a woman this week that resigned working for us, and she'd only been here 8 weeks in our training, completed the training. She'd been out, I don't know, a couple of weeks maybe after that. So she's a full-time officer, deputy working in the institutions, and I was really moved by her resignation on Monday. It was very sudden, you know, and but the reason was, given in her resignation, was that the father of her child was murdered, and the person who did it was on the floor in the facility in which she was assigned. We obviously offered to move her to another institution.
But you were aware of it, and you offered.
We didn't know until all this, and she didn't reveal that, because and what we ask is, you know, any reasons you can't work here? Are there people in your family? We don't exclude you from working here. We just don't want you to work in those environments. Well, so I would have expected her to have brought that up. It's not a policy violation, but just to make her own self comfortable. We do a lot of OJT where you're working in different facilities. And then once she made that decision, or was going to make that decision, we clearly sit down with her and say, look, are there any other facilities, any other departments you want to work in? We don't want to lose her, but you can understand. I mean, she just can't get up, and she thought she could, and go to work every day and see through what seems like a very tragic.
Do you prefer, though, just as we go to the break, I understand you said it wasn't a policy violation, but would you prefer that your staff alert you if for some reason they have a personal relationship, possibly a negative personal encounter, a relationship with, checks into the jail? Yeah,
so our policy is real clear. I meet with them the very first hour of their employment, and one of the 3 things that I hit on is that. And the thing is, you're required to notify us if you have anything but a professional relationship with a person who's in custody. And I say to everybody, everyone here is likely to have family or friends who come to jail. It's just part of life. Your obligation is to notify us upon their being arrested.
An uncle or a brother. Now, it's a little different, though, in her case, in that this was some guy who murdered. She has no relationship with him, but obviously, you know, she's someone probably not too fond of this individual. But it wasn't her to have to tell you this, but she chose to resign so she didn't have to be around him.
Yeah, and that's the unusual part.
Even though you offered to move her.
Right. And we've terminated many people over the years when, you know, let's just make it up that the person that you went to the prom with 3 years ago and you're staying in contact with 2 or 3 times a year is also serving 60 days, but you didn't tell us that, and then he sends you a note or texts you on your, or tries to get your phone number through some means, and we will terminate you. We don't ask any questions, because if you're not going to be honest about a relationship you have, and I'm talking about a non-professional one, her situation is totally different. Absolutely. Believe me, she had no relationship with this person, but it was just painful, because I can understand why she gets up every day and tries to go to work. Although we've been training for 8 weeks and showing her the environment, it was very tough for her to get over the reality that person was here and charged with killing someone.
Don't blame her at all. Listen, we'll take a break on that note. When we come back, we've got some phone calls coming in. I bet one of them is Joe.
I hope so.
But the number is 737-7587. If you have a question for Davidson County Sheriff Daron Hall, give us a call. Any number of topics we can talk about. This guy's schooled on law enforcement, the jail, and we can talk about things going on to help others during the holidays. We'll be back with more right after this.
Medicare annual enrollment ends December 7th.